Today, I want to share a deeply personal story with you about something really intense and beautiful and transformational that happened for me about a month and a half ago at a workshop that I went to out west around somatics and embodiment. And this is something that is going to fundamentally impact who I am, both personally and as a facilitator going forward for the rest of my life. And I thought that for you, as somebody who's maybe listened to other episodes of my podcast, or maybe my YouTube videos, or maybe my courses or coaching or retreats, that it might be interesting for you to get a look into my world. Because obviously I've been leading all kinds of sexual mastery programs, group workshops and courses full-time for many years now. And what's also true is behind the scenes of that is that I'm committed to my own growth journey, both as a person and a facilitator. And what that has looked like specifically for the past couple of years has been really doing a deep dive into the world of somatics, both in terms of learning techniques to guide people through, and then also going through processes myself to learn these new pathways and patterns and have these openings in my body. And this is something that happened for me a month and a half ago, something that just broke me open in a way that I have needed for a long time. And the way it happened is so cool. And I'm excited to share that with you in this episode. And one little aside first, just a cool thing about the word somatics. You've probably heard it a ton over the past couple of years, and it feels like somatics has become this buzzword that's super common these days. And I think that's great. And it's interesting because to me, when I think of the word somatics and when I think of all the things that are encapsulated in what people are talking about when they say somatics is basically the Western accepted way to bring in all kinds of techniques and states of consciousness and practices from the esoteric world that have existed for generations. When you really start to do a deep dive into the world of Western accepted somatics, you see that there's all kinds of wild things that can happen, like psychedelic experiences, big emotional openings and explosions of sensation and visualizations and just wild stuff that is now becoming accepted and encouraged in these, all kinds of somatic modalities. So I think it's very, very cool. And you'll hear a little bit of that in my personal story coming up. So thanks for being here. Really humbled and excited to share this with you. And let's get into it. This particular story today starts earlier this year. I've been studying with this organization called the Strozzi Institute. They're based out of California, and I've gone back and forth a number of times taking different programs of theirs. And I think that their stuff is amazing. And what they're doing is starting to come into the work that I do with guys a little bit more and more as I go further with my own journey and my own practice with it. And I'll paint a little picture in terms of a spectrum of somatics. So somatic experiencing, probably some of you listening have heard of that. Basically, it's a modality that many therapists study and use that's designed to help resolve trauma, right? So this is sort of going back and working on a incomplete fight, flight, or freeze response to help people get out of that stuck state. Long story short. So if we think of somatics as a spectrum, on the other end of this spectrum, that's kind of the opposite of going back to unwind trauma, there's the Strozzi Institute. This is my opinion. They don't necessarily say this, but this is my opinion. Strozzi Institute is a lot about how do you generate a posture, an embodiment, a lifestyle, choices, reactions while you're interfacing with people in the world, a somatic embodiment that aligns with and supports your directional move towards the life that you care about. So you see how that's kind of like two different ends of the spectrum. And so I had my first experience with the Strozzi Institute a couple years ago, and I've been going back ever since. And earlier this year, I went to 2 of their programs, and I'm going to go to a third starting later this year that I'll share with you in a bit. But I first went to this one called Somatic Bodywork. And this is different from any massage you've ever had. And I just want to give a little context of this because it ties in directly to what happened to me 6 weeks ago that was incredibly profound, personally life transformational, something that has stayed with me that I've been integrating pretty much every day since then, right? So the bodywork training happened a month before that. So we'll call it maybe 10 weeks ago. Their whole modality is that they help people transform, right? This is what the whole organization does. And they do so through different somatic practices, through different spoken word exercises, through different embodiment approaches that work really well. And bodywork is part of their whole modality as well. And so it's not bodywork in the sense of like, we're going to massage your arm and your shoulder and your back to help you feel really good and get a nervous system relaxation response. Get this. It is, let's work on your personality and your patterns through your body, because our body specifically holds different tension points and different patterns and different bands in different parts of the body. And if you can identify those and see where those things are held and then work on them, you can actually unwind and unravel and open different parts of the personality through the body without even really talking about it. So that's the long story short of what happened with me 6 weeks ago. And now I'm going to share the specifics of that. And ultimately, yes, all this does relate with sex in some way. This is a sex podcast, of course. And also, if you've been connected with me for a while, you know that I'm interested in so many more things besides sex. And that's the beautiful thing about sex, is that everything is actually related to it. And it's a jumping off point for so much about like, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of relationship? What is purpose? What is joy and happiness and aliveness? All this stuff relates to our sexuality. So I went to their program called Somatics, Trauma, and Resilience. And so this is Strozzi's perspective on how to work with that kind of stuff. Very different from somatic experiencing. And naively, I went into that training thinking that I was going to have some of my own processes and experiences, of course, but coming at it more from a perspective of, oh, I'm going to learn some really useful tools and techniques to help people. And I did. But the biggest part of my experience was my own big awakening and big opening, what they call a somatic opening, and their whole arc of transformation that happened there. So I show up, and there's a bunch of people in Oakland, California in this classroom. I'm excited about it. I walk in. First day of classes, go through. It's great. Second day, there's a number of different instructors. Maybe this one, there were actually like 6 different instructors for 24 people or something. The leader-student ratio is pretty awesome. And one of the things that they do as facilitators, as instructors, is they offer assessments to the participants. And this is something that's part of the whole model of the Strozzi Institute, is that they have the belief that if you are a leader, if you're somebody who's going to be facilitating other people through things, then you should really have a strong skill set of how to give somebody an assessment of their character, of their performance, of their embodiment, of any number of things for the sake of this person's growth, right? So in some ways you could say this would be a judgment for the sake of somebody's growth, like made with care, made with hope for their own transformation. So one of the instructors there, he's somebody who's given me a couple of different, like really valuable assessments over the course of my couple of years of studying with Strozzi. And he came up to me on the second day and he said, "Hey, Taylor, I have an assessment of you. Would you like to hear it?" And I, of course, said, "Yes, please. Like, I'm paying for this program. Please give me your assessment. Like, I want this." And he said, "Taylor, I noticed that when you walk into a room, when you come into a space, on the surface, there's this warmth, there's this friendliness, there's a lot of charisma on the surface. There's this, you can make people feel fun and welcome, et cetera, et cetera." And he said, "Underneath the surface, I sense that there's some part of you that is guarded, that is hesitant, that actually kind of keeps people at a distance, that kind of plays it safe. Like you're trying to stay safe. I think this is what's happening. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something there that's like right under the surface of you that I think is one of the biggest potential unlocks of your life. If you could figure this thing out and touch it, I think you would have a lot more happiness, a lot more of the connection that you're desiring in life, et cetera, et cetera." And then he asked me, does that land for you? Did you resonate with this? Does it make sense? To which I said, yes. Yes, of course it does make sense. And I had been thinking about it the night before. And so this is a little personal look into my world. Like generally I am a really friendly person and conversational, upbeat. If you know me closely, you know that I often go around just whistling, tapping on stuff, drumming on stuff, and generally feel really good. And something that some people might have noticed throughout time is that socially and in certain contexts, there can be this part of me that where there's some, maybe there's like an anxiety or a self-protective thing or something that's like, oh, I've got to go. Or I'm going to assess that maybe I don't connect with you, or maybe, there's sort of a scan of the environment and the people there to look for who I don't think would be somebody I would connect with. That's a way that I have, you could call it led in certain spaces, like internally, unconsciously led my experience in some spaces, if that makes sense. I'm going to take a breath. Yeah. And so this showed up on the first day of the workshop. There was somebody in that workshop who I really enjoyed and appreciated and respected from a previous workshop. And I thought internally, this was my process. I thought, ooh, I want to go say hey to this person, say, hey, it's nice to be here again with you. But this part of me that I just named, this skeptical part, made an unconscious or semi-conscious judgment that, oh, they're not actually the same kind of person as me. So maybe I shouldn't approach them. Like they're either not going to be welcoming or I'm not going to be welcoming of them, or there's something there. And it's not totally logical, right? This is sort of like a anxious safety sort of protector, like underneath the surface, like, oh, I'm just not going to go there. But really there's a part of me that wanted that connection. And it really hit me when this person later in the day actually came up to me and said, hey, Taylor, it's nice to see you again. It's great to be here with you again. How have the last couple months been? And it was this like, whoa, experience of realizing like my judgments just completely fucked that up in the sense of they were just wrong. They were just incorrect. And I could have gone up to this person and said, hey, it's great to be here again with you, but I didn't because of this part, and this is a part that I've been seeing a little bit more of over the last, couple of years as I do more of this work. And I've seen it show up in places like the grocery store and places that are, more social, where somebody might want to connect with me. And there's this part of me that's like, I gotta go. Go where? Not really sure, So circling back around to the conversation with this facilitator, he asked me if I was aware of more of it or knew what it was about. And at the time, I didn't really. I said, no, it feels a little evasive. Like this part of myself feels kind of hard to touch. I'm aware of it, but I'm not quite sure how to get to it. Not quite sure how to work on it, but I would very much like to work on it. And so he said, I think this should be the focus of your bodywork session that's going to happen next, or that's going to happen soon. And so as part of this whole 4-day experience, we're going to have bodywork sessions where the students practice on each other at a number of predetermined points throughout the body for the sake of touching different personality patterns. And I was paired up with somebody who I thought would be a great fit, and I was excited to work with them. And the instructor asked me, he said, Taylor, would you like me perhaps to be available to come over and help during the bodywork session if you would like? And I said, yeah, totally. That would be great. So that's where that conversation ended. And I felt excited and I felt hopeful and I felt nervous too. And there was this part of me that kind of knew like, oh, this is a really big thing. Maybe it relates to something in my childhood. Maybe it relates to something with parents or upbringing, whatever. But it felt like one of those things, and I could feel this nervous energy of like, oh man, if I touch this, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know what's going to come up for me. I don't know, because it's like it dances around my awareness and sort of hides sometimes, but then shows up in all these scenarios, and it just feels like this big evasive shadow piece. And so I asked my bodywork partner if I could receive first, because this conversation felt so fresh, and it was that day. And So the bodywork session begins, and we get maybe 20 minutes in or so, and I'm having a relaxing experience, nothing particularly transformational. There was one point where one of the facilitators walked by when I was getting a little bit of work done on my heart, and this facilitator said, "Oh yeah, spend a little more time there because he's got some stuckness in his heart." And that was like, for a little blip of a moment, like a quarter of a second, I felt some emotion pop up there, and it felt like a little bit like tears, sadness, or grief, or something. It felt like that part of me wanted to be seen for a second, and then it got covered back up. Like I moved past it again into relaxation. And this is something where, as a practitioner, it's interesting to reflect on. A lot of times, being in a state of deep relaxation, well, often being in a state of deep relaxation is not actually the state where you can access the things you might want to access for the sake of transformation, right? So we're getting close to the halfway point, and I realized, like, oh man, this is my chance. Like, this is my chance to really touch this thing and at least attempt to work on it with somebody who's skilled. So I raised my hand off the bodywork table and called this instructor over and asked him, "Hey, I can't quite access this part of me. Would you help?" And he said, "Okay, you want to dive into it?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go. I'm ready. I'm here for this. Like, I'm ready." And this is where it just got wild, like wild. So a couple of different parts to this. I'll just tell you what happened, and then I'll sort of reflect on it. He said, "Okay." And he put his hand on my chest, right around here if you're watching this video on YouTube, basic, like middle of the chest heart position. And he said out loud, "Okay, there's the first layer of you." And then he like did a little adjustment, like just a minor adjustment with his hand. And then he pressed in just a hair, just a little bit. And it almost seemed like he was looking into more than just my body. And he pressed in just a little bit, and he said, "There it is." And right when he said that and pressed in, I just had this huge release, like this huge, just like explosion of grief and feeling, and this unlock of this thing that was just like, that had been stuck in here. And it felt like he reached into my personality through my body. Like he reached into my soul. He reached into my consciousness through my body, where my consciousness had been holding something, and just touched it. And in the touching of it, allowed for this giant release and giant unfolding to happen. And I just cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I released. And he stayed with me while my other partner stayed at my shoulder. And he would do like slight modulations of his hand, like twist here, press in just a little bit more when I would go through a wave of grief, and then kind of like have a moment. And he would let me have a moment and then say, "Okay, take a breath." And then he would push again with his hand. And it felt like, it got to the point where it felt like he was pushing through my chest cavity, through to my spine, back to the back of the table. Like he was pressing all the way through me. It was unbelievable. Like, I don't know how to put into words the level of intensity and beauty and release that this felt like. It was psychedelic. It was waves and waves of stuff happening through my body, through my consciousness, tingles running through my legs and my arms. It was a huge somatic opening and release. It was incredible. And I felt my heart more open than I have ever felt really in my life. Perhaps with the exception of a couple different experiences of MDMA. But this was totally sober, without any substances at all, just with the attention, intention, and loving care of a practitioner who was so incredibly skilled to observe some part of my personality and to make an assessment of how it showed up in my interactions with people, and to see how that showed up in my body, and to then be able to go immediately to that point within less than 10 seconds of having their hands on me, so that I had this massive release. Like, that's amazing. That is, like, one, an incredible practitioner, and two, just an amazing thing to experience as a human. And My heart has felt, I've had more sensation in my chest and my heart since then than I ever have in the rest of my life. And I just mean just simple sensation going about my daily life. I feel this part of my body more. I've had more access to softness every day. I've had more access to emotion, feeling things. And it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful. And yes, this pattern of mine still shows up, but it feels like it has been fundamentally accessed in a new way that softens everything. And it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm just going to take a moment to feel that for a moment, because I know I've just said a lot of words. I remember laying on the table and he had his hand on me close to the end of the experience, and he said, yeah, it feels like my hand goes way deeper into you. Like this pattern is so much more dissolved than it was before. And it's true. And it's just so good to feel, and so good to feel that openness. And I've had in my personal life multiple experiences since then where I've been able to catch myself having that sort of disconnection assessment, oh, I've got to go type mentality, and instead taking a breath, feeling this area of my body, feeling my heart, and choosing to enter into conversation or connection with this person that I felt that perhaps aversion with. And every single time I've done that so far has resulted in a really beautiful conversation, sometimes with a stranger, sometimes with an acquaintance. And it's a nice softening, and it makes me wonder, like, what would my life be like at this point right now if I had figured this out earlier? Which doesn't really matter in many ways because I'm here now and I've had the gift of being able to unlock this. But also, what beauty will open up in my life beyond this, moving forward, because of this? Who knows? Who knows? And so I'm so deeply grateful for that experience and for the ability to integrate it, and for what it has shown me about my life, and for what it has allowed me to feel. And it gives me so much intrigue and curiosity and fascination with this kind of work. You know, I don't know that I want to transition to being a somatic body worker per se at some point in the future, but like, wow, that is some amazing stuff. Each somatic bodywork session I've had with this organization has been phenomenal and transformational in a really profound way. And I have interest and excitement in trying to do some of these sessions for friends and people who I know already who are interested in just going through it as an experiment, because it's just a fascinating model, you know, to look at the personality through the body. Yeah. And it makes me excited to keep studying with this organization too. Like, I feel like my own growth is happening in such a beautiful way through my studies with them, and my own process and abilities as a facilitator and as somebody who guides other people through their own transformation. Like, that has evolved tremendously over of course, all the years I've been doing this work full time, but especially over the last couple of years that I've been really diving into the study of all this somatic stuff. And so, yeah, to be able to work on the personality and patterns through the body. Fascinating, fascinating stuff. And this is one of the things that I am so excited about bringing to retreats and in-person experiences, and started to last year with the retreat that I led with my friend Thomas. Led some things that were inspired by what I've learned at the Strozzi Institute, and it was really impactful for people. And I've just started to do that here in the Asheville area with some friends and acquaintances, just for the sake of testing some things out and trying to do more. And here's a bit of an update. Well, actually, an announcement that relates to this, that if you've listened to some of my most recent podcasts, you will have heard that I was planning to offer a advanced somatics workshop later this year in October. And what's happened over the last couple months is I've been in a lot of reflection around this, and a lot of reflection around the timing of everything. And what I'm choosing to do is to actually postpone that until the spring, Because of everything that I'm learning right now, and because there's another long program that I'm going to sign up for with the Strozzi Institute that also starts in October that I want to really devote a lot of my time to learning. So that's one part. And I also want to practice a lot of these exercises and things that I want to guide people through. I want to guide groups through them a number of times in shorter little workshop sessions over the next, we'll say like 6 months or so I can really practice and refine them so that I feel very confident in what I'm going to guide people through in a retreat. Like right now, I could guide an awesome, amazing transformational program in late October for sure. And for my own joy and my own excitement and my own learning and my own feeling of desire to share like the best thing possible that I feel most excited about, I'm going to transition that to spring. And I haven't landed on spring dates, but I wanted to let you know in case you're somebody who's excited about that stuff. It's going to happen. And if you're in the Asheville area, there are going to be opportunities to try some of these things over the next 6 months. And you can reach out to me to ask about that if that's something you're curious about. Which means also that the Liberate Your Life Force retreat that's going to happen next month is the only in-person retreat that I am going to offer this year in 2025. So if you wanted to work with me at an in-person retreat, that's the thing to sign up for. And now is the time to sign up for that because it starts in just a couple weeks. It starts August 4th. So let me take a moment and take a sip of water and just feel into if there's anything else I want to add here. Yeah. How does this relate to sex? Great question. It relates to sex because, when I'll share two things. First do I do the personal first? Yeah, I'll do the retreat first. So, the Liberate Your Life Force retreat that we did last year that's coming up again. The reason I'm collaborating with Thomas about this is that we both have our strong areas. Strengths, different things we bring, right? When we were having a conversation about all this stuff, we realized, me, Taylor, I'm really skilled in the sexual realm, teaching sexual practices, learning how to do all these sexual mastery things. Thomas is really skilled in the area of the heart and the expression and emotionality. And we're learning from each other in these two areas. I would say that my biggest, aside from my own sexual growth journey that started in my early and mid 20s, like arguably my biggest personal growth edge transformation process throughout my entire life has been the process of opening my heart, feeling more emotion, feeling safe to express emotion, feeling safe to feel emotion. Like that has been such a big growth part of my life. Like if you knew me 14 years ago or something, you would be like, Taylor, you are a fucking fundamentally different person. Wow. I still have some rigid pattern stuff now, but back then, like, whoa, I was very kind of just cut and dry rigid. And I would say like all the spiritual things, and I played in a kirtan band, and I would have these expansive, spiritual experiences, and at the same time was like cut off from the actual vulnerability of emotion and heart space. And so in sex, the ability to bring the heart into the experience is such a profoundly beautiful, amazing feeling thing. And it's something that I've had challenge with, it's something I have to practice regularly. And so for me, being able to unlock this in a way that, of course, I'm going to have to keep practicing on it, but this newfound freedom and openness directly translates to my life as a sexual being in a beautiful way. I feel more access to this part of me. I feel more openness. I feel more openness and excitement to the things I do want and the things that I don't want and the things that I'm excited about and the things that I'm an absolute no to. And it's like all of that's so much more clear now because I have this access to emotion and heart that came from in-person work, that came from hands-on work, and just fucking cool. It's just so cool. Yeah, man, this stuff is very cool. Like if you're somebody who likes to geek out on this stuff, I'd be interested to just have a conversation with you, especially if you're in the Asheville area and you're somebody who's maybe practiced some of these things or had some of your own experiences and you just want to have a chat about it. let me know, because I feel pretty fired up about it. And last piece I'll add is, I think, here's a look into where I'm going in the future. I think there is a mountain of potential in the realm of men's work, even in the realm of men's sexual mastery, but in men's work, men's spaces, huge amount of potential of merging the worlds of intentional movement with somatics, deep and advanced somatic practices. This combination, this exploration of things is so rich and so fun, and also so fundamental to what it means to be a sexual man and a sexual human. This is the direction that I'm studying. This is the direction that I'm going. While I will continue to refine and offer and excitedly help men along their own sexual mastery journeys with things like the Orgasmic Mastery course and one-on-one coaching and all that, of course, this sort of embodiment and somatic work is just rich. There's so much there, and the potential is massive, both for the field, I think, and also for you and for me and any man alive. So yeah, thanks for spending this time with me and hearing a little bit about my life story. Like, it feels fun to share with you. It feels fun to give you a little bit of a look into my world and what's on my horizon and what's lighting me up, because I know I have a ton of videos out there about how to do this thing, and here's a video about this topic, and yeah, it's nice to share and nice to be known. And please feel free to share this with anybody who you think would be interested in learning about somatics, learning about transformation, learning about bodywork, learning about just the process of becoming a more open-hearted person in general. And if you have any questions, let me know in the YouTube comment section, because I think I'll post this to YouTube. And yeah, let's all take a breath together. Yeah, thanks for being here. I appreciate your time. And I will see you in the next episode. Cheers.